Hello, this is Caregiver Assist. I'm Rick Anthony. This series of 14 30-minute episodes is being produced in memory of my late wife, Marlene A. Anthony, who passed away October 3rd, 2022. I was her primary caregiver with major assist from our 5 children and their families. When the hospital told me they could do nothing more for Marlene, that she was dying, I was confused and distraught. I had known she would never enjoy good health again. But the prospect of losing her after almost 65 years of marriage, with not being able to do anything more for her except keep her comfortable, was a shock. She returned to our home not knowing her fate. Hospice was a word I had heard but knew nothing about. Yet there we were with a hospital bed in the dining room, oxygen tank standing by, and hospice staff busily converting our dining room into an end-of-life sanctuary. It was the final chapter in a long journey of my beloved wife and, for me, her devoted caregiver. My family and I kept a 24-hour vigil for several days as Marlene gradually slipped away, returning to her maker at 2:16 on Monday afternoon. Today's episode of Caregiver Assist is about hospice and the wonderful, compassionate people who administer to patients during their final days. With me today is a good friend, Paul Berenato, who is himself a caregiver for his late wife, Marie, and is now in training to become a hospice volunteer. Thanks, Paul.
Rich,
Appreciate
pleasure to
you
be
being
here. Pleasure.
We've shared many stories, your journey and mine. Marie passed away, I think, 3 months before Marlene.
July of 23.
Yeah.
You and I go back a long way. I mean, we're not just because of Marie and Marlene at the last. We go back to when our children were children.
It's got to be.
And growing up in St. Dorothy's Parish.
40 years.
We go way back. More than that.
40 years.
Yeah.
That's right.
Our children are 60, so back it up. When they were 10, that was 50 years ago.
It was just a group of people, all the same age. Kids were the same age, and we grew up together. It was wonderful. Growing up in Drexel.
You had a wonderful wife, and I had a wonderful wife.
It was a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Back in those days, and it's nice to remember. And I know my kids still talk about growing up in Drexel Hill, how wonderful it was. You told me that you were so impressed with the hospice treatment that Marie received, it inspired you to become a hospice volunteer. Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, my wife was sick for a long time. She was sick from like 2013, and she didn't pass away until 2022. But not sick. I mean, she had a disconnect from her brain to her outer organs, her legs. She could walk, but she couldn't walk well. She needed help. She was a mother and a wife for a lot of years. And so I guess God gave her a rest the last 6 or 7 years of her life. Fortunately for me, and like everything happens in a strange way, I retired from my job in 2013. And I sort of wasn't retired. I was in a family business, and my kids sort of kicked me out. So
it happens.
That's not quite like retiring.
You probably deserve it.
But funny things happen. So if I had to continue working, I wouldn't have had the time to take care of my wife in the way I wanted to.
Yep.
And being in a family business and sons who had worked for me for 30, 35 years, it wasn't like they were kids who came off the block. They were grown men that felt their father was getting in their way. So we made a couple trips to Florida. Marie fell in 2013, had to go to the hospital, but survived, fell again in 14, and from 14 on it became like a downward spiral. In 16, she had a brain bleed, and I had so many calls at night to the ambulances to go to Bryn Mawr Hospital, to go at the shore. When we were at the shore, we have a seashore home. It was all part of her going through the end of her life, not in a short period of time, but over an extended period of time. And we saw the doctor, we did this, we did that. And in December of 21, I said to our primary care physician, Doc, I said, you know what, if we could just give her a bag of fluids once in a month. These hospital trips probably wouldn't continue because they were scary. When your wife drops to the floor and she has a hard time breathing, and you're the only guy there, and the EMTs from Newtown Square, I couldn't speak more highly of them. They would come in, they would do their job, they would get her to the hospital, and in a day or two she would be out. A few of the stays were longer. A few of the stays required physical therapy at some of the physical therapy places throughout Delaware County. And so I had a lot of time to watch different people come in. So when I went to the primary and I said to her, couldn't we do something that, like, put a port and give her, they said, well, no, you really, that comes under just something called palliative care. But you have to be evaluated for that. So when the palliative care people came, and they came from Mainline Health, because they were the people who normally took care of Marie when she came home, the visiting nurses and PT people and people like that. Basically, we were my wife was in the Mainline Health system. So the palliative care person came and said, well, Paul, we really don't put ports in for this. It's more than you think it is. And so we sort of had a palliative care person came by for about 6, 8 weeks, once or twice a week for 6 or 8 weeks. And she came to me and she said, you know what? Your wife is coming near the end of her life. Shock. Yeah. And she says, we have a thing called hospice. Well, I, like you, heard of it just in our goings on in life. We hear of it, but knew not much of it. So when it was explained to me, basically what it said to me was, your wife is not going to recover. No matter what medical care we give her now, is not, if anything, is going to prolong our life. That's not a good life. Yeah. So we slipped into hospice in January of 2022, and I said to the Mainline Health people, we have a home at the shore. Now my wife was not bedridden. You have to remember, she's under hospice, but she's not bedridden. She can get in the car with me and drive. We can go out to restaurants. We can go to family parties. We can go to christenings. We can do a lot of things.
Did she enjoy all of that in her condition?
Believe it or not, she did. I mean, she didn't like being with a walker. No. She didn't like being in a wheelchair. Right. But, you know, there were functions that she wanted to attend to. These were family functions. These were things that brought us all joy. It's just watching our own children and our own children advancing through life. So yeah, she enjoyed it. And I said to them, you know, we have a house at the shore, and we're going to the shore come hell or high water, come May. Yeah. So this is December. So what happened was they said, well, there's no problem. When you want to go to the shore, we'll just switch her off to a hospice that we'll recommend at the shore, and you go to the shore and you'll have the same kind of services. So we went to the shore prior to Memorial Day. So my wife had all May, or all June, and half of July at the seashore. 3 weeks prior to her death, we went over to Ocean City and we saw her girlfriends at a restaurant, her college classmates. We walked the boardwalk her in a wheelchair. We went down and saw the sunset at the gazebo in Sea Isle City. I look back on those days and say, God, thank you for just the opportunity to have her experience these things again. Again, she was never really in any pain. She couldn't do anything, but she was not in pain. And that's a blessing. So that's how we drifted into the hospice care. They're both nonprofit organizations. Mainline Health is their recommendation. We moved into the Holy Redeemer operation by their recommendation and our choice, because there's more than one hospice service in South Jersey. There's a multitude of services you can go to. And they're all a business. They all have the same purpose, but they all have different ways they go about it. So watching the nurse come in, watching the aides come in, talking to the social service people, having the opportunity to have a chaplain within the group. I never had a call for a volunteer because of the size of my family. I, like you, have 5 children. We had care within our house. We didn't have to go outside. Many people do not have the luxury or the blessings that you and I have had over the years.
Was she bedridden in the house?
She was bedridden in the house, yes. Yeah. But bedridden to the point that I could get her out of bed and take her. She was probably only in the bed for probably the last 10 days of her life. Yeah. I mean, where she didn't get out and even get into a chair.
So how long was she in hospice?
From January of 2022 to July 12th of 2022.
Really?
Yeah. Hospice to go into hospice, the medical people are saying we cannot save this person. In palliative care, the aim is still to try and save the purpose.
Yeah, it's a path to recovery.
Right. Looking back on hospice, where did it come from? All right. In my day and your day, because you're only a few years younger than I am, people died within their home, buried within their living room, went to the church, went to the cemetery.
Yep.
In the 70s, when science became really, science grows every day. So in the 60s and the 70s and after World War II, science said we can save people. So our life expectancy has really increased because of the ability of medical people to hold back diseases, to treat diseases, to cure diseases. So our life has expanded. But death is inevitable. I mean, we're going to all die, and it's somewhere down the road. Someone said to me once, we're all given a candle at birth, and some burn longer than others. So we all have a time. And in the course of watching these people look after my wife, better than I could, better because they're trained in it. I was a rookie learning how to take care of a person.
But there's another aspect to it. I mean, they're somewhat detached. They have to be.
Oh, yeah.
They're not obviously they are emotionally involved. How can you not be? But not with the same intensity as you or I.
Mainly because they also know that life is inevitable, death is inevitable, and their job is to comfort the patient as well as help the family. Mm-hmm. That's the second big thing, help the family. The person's going to go, but the family's going to stay. Yeah. And the family has all these years and years of memory. And it's tough to let somebody go. You well know it. I know it.
Yep.
We've lost our mothers. We've lost our fathers. Thank God we've never lost a child. But it's a difficult situation. And they can be detached because they know that these people are in their final stages. And they want that final stage to be as comfortable as it possibly can. So how did I get into hospice? I got a card in the mail. Well, let's back up a little bit. Let me back up a little bit. So now I'm left and my wife is gone. And God, why did she go before me? Why am I still hanging around? You know, what is my future? Why am I here? What is my future? So
play golf.
You can't live on golf. You can't even join bowling to see if I can live on bowling. You can't even live on bowling and golf. But I prayed for a purpose. So I've always been, I hate to say a religious person, but I grew up in a Catholic faith and I grew up with the beliefs of the Catholic Church. I tried to live my life according to the Catholic way of life. We're all fallible. We all make mistakes. But I started to go into Mass after my wife passed away and have continued to become a daily Mass communicant guy. And my prayer has always been, come on, Lord, what the hell you want me to do? You know, why am I here? You know. And out of the blue one day came a card in the mail, mailed on August 15th, 2023. How about volunteering to help in hospice? This card went to about 300 people. It went to a lot of people who are under the Holy Redeemer care, and they have found that people have gone through it if their temperament allows them. And I like to think my temperament allows it to help people that are going through that crisis, because you've gone through it and you know the ups and downs, you know the finality of it, but you also know that life for the person that survived continues. So I answered it. Spiro Ballas responded to me email, told me about what his job was. He's the volunteer coordinator for the Holy Redeemer system in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, covering the whole state of New Jersey. Now, I'm down in Cape May County. I have a tough time going up to somewhere in North Jersey to take care of somebody. So we met in a town called Swainton, Pennsylvania, or Swainton, New Jersey, which is actually behind Avalon, New Jersey, a little bit behind Sea City. The training consisted of 5 evenings, 3-hour sessions. Before
you go there, did he tell you how many people responded to that card?
3 people responded out of the 300.
3 out of 300.
Yeah. 2 came. I came and another woman came.
Did he indicate whether or not that was normal?
Well, what he did tell us, the history of their time in South Jersey
Yeah.
was they were in great shape prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic just blew the whole volunteer thing. So they're really back again, starting from scratch. In the county of Cape May, 3 people are ahead of us, and we fought, the girl and I, whether she was 4 or 5. So I acquiesced to the woman, so I became the 5th volunteer. But funny enough, the volunteers, they look for certain specific talents. They look for hairdressers, so they can come into the home and do the woman's hair or anybody's hair, and make them feel better. They look for musicians who can bring peace and tranquility into a situation that's grief-filled. They look for masseuses to go in and relieve and make the patient feel well. They look for people with service dogs that can come in and somehow the comfort that a service dog brings into a room. I bring nothing. The girl that trained with me was a musician, but she's going to be a musician and a volunteer both. Because how many people really think about they want music in the room, But people who that brings comfort to that person is in their last stages of life. So
is this something unique to this particular hospice?
No, I think
because I've never heard of this before. We didn't have
because
anybody.
You said you didn't know a darn thing about hospice.
We had nobody coming into the house.
If you had a guy like me come in there, man, I would have had you every service under the sun. But the training was intense. And here's a fella, now he makes his home up in way up in North Jersey. Spearless does. Coming down to teach 2 people for a 3-hour session in Cape May County and driving home. Yeah. So our first sessions were scheduled from 6 to 9. And he said to us, what kind of a schedule do you 2 guys have? You and the woman with me. And we said, I'm retired. I don't anytime. Yeah. Can we move it up to? We moved it up to 4 to 7, so the poor guy could go home in the light. Good teacher, dedicated man. Made the learning. We have a manual. And this manual is what we had to learn in 15 hours. I said to him, this was harder than getting into the Marine Corps. I said, geez, I'm an old guy. How am I supposed to memorize all this stuff?
Did you have to have a physical?
Oh, well, let me tell you.
Or provide evidence of physical capability?
Let me tell you, we have to do a lot of things. First of all, they got to find out if we're anyway a criminal. Yeah. Secondly, they want to check on our driving record, which is, you wouldn't think that, We have to have blood work. We have to have up to snuff on all of our immunization shots. I had to get a flu shot. Now, normally I get my flu shot in December when I visit my primary doctor. I had to get my flu shot down there to push the process along a little bit. I'm not even an accepted member yet. I'm still a volunteer in training. Now, I've done all the classwork. Every class ended every class started with some off the wall. First one was write your own obituary. Wow. The next one was, what does religion mean to me? Anyway, there was 5. And when you open a class, it dropped some. The last one was, tell us the first death you remember and tell us the last death you remember. And how did that impact you? Now, if he had dropped that on me, and now luckily, he forgot the test. It's not the test. Yeah. This is a little preliminary get into the session. Yeah. He forgot it. So he emailed it to us afterwards. So when we went back for our 5th session, our last session, I said to him, you know what, Sirius, if you had dropped that on my desk and wanted me to do that in 5 or 10 minutes, I'm not sure I could have done it. Mm-hmm. And the woman said to me, that's exactly how I felt. And now I had to think about it. And my first death that I remember, I was 30 years old. It was my father. Now look at all the people that passed away during those 30 years that I was on Earth. My aunts, my uncles. I had a cousin killed in World War II that I remember. But my father stuck with me. And I said, and this might seem strange, but and the woman said, you know what, Sirius, I look back and I lost a friend in 7th grade. And I remembered that friend for the first time in a lot of years. And thank you for letting me think back. She said, I probably would have never remembered her.
Do they also test you for emotional intelligence, for empathy?
Well, you know what?
Personality traits, things.
When we fill out these things, they're gathering some psychological image on us. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
That's everybody who takes this course does not get accepted into this program. They weed out. They're not looking for just volunteers. They want people that will meet their standards. Now, I don't know their standards, but right now, this young lady and I have passed everything they want to see in a volunteer.
Right.
Now we're in the final administrative part of, we had to sign off a lot of different things. And so I expect before the first of the year, and probably before even Christmas, that I'll become a volunteer with a lanyard around my neck with a sign that says I'm a volunteer for the Holy Redeemers Health System.
How are you assigned? Do you rotate assignments, or once you're assigned, do you stick with that assignment?
At the present time in Cape May County, I know for a fact there's 37 people under hospice, under Holy Redeemer Health System. Now they're going to have 5 volunteers. The patient or somebody on the team, now you have to know what our team is. Our team is a medical doctor, a trained nurse, and a trained aide. 3 very, very important people to the patient.
Right.
Then we have the social service worker, and we have the chaplain. The chaplain, of course, is to the patient as well as to the grievers. Whereas a social worker is mostly to help the caretaker. What path am I going down? What choices do I have? We're the volunteer. So these other 5 people are in place automatically. But if the aide or the nurse or the social worker says, boy, you're taking care of this person all by yourself, how do you go to the store? Well, I really don't know. She said, maybe you should ask for a volunteer.
Yeah.
So the patient has to ask. I never had a volunteer in my own situation because I never asked for a volunteer because I didn't need a volunteer.
We didn't either.
But believe it or not, there's an awful lot of people out there that have no one.
The chaplain and the social worker, they met with us once.
Okay.
But it was optional. They asked, would you like this service? And
Right.
I opted not for it.
Right. I opted not for the clergy, too, because the clergy was not of my faith, which that means nothing. He was of the Christian faith.
Very nice person.
And I said, you know what? I have a lot of spiritual care within my own parish.
Yeah.
My pastor came to the shore. He had a home in Avalon. He would come to Avalon. He would come visit. But that chaplain let me know, Paul, if anything comes up, here is my number. Call me. I'm on 24-hour call. So because I didn't need him doesn't mean he doesn't do a service.
Do you have a role to play after the patient has passed during the period of bereavement and grieving?
They have to remember, we're there for the family.
Yeah.
The volunteer is not there for the patient. The volunteer is there for the family. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
We can't help. We're trained and told it is not your job to do. You can't administer medicine.
Yeah.
If that patient needs medicine in some real quick way, you call this number. We'll have somebody there in a very short period of time. It all depends how close are you to the main headquarters. So you can have somebody. When the patient dies, the first thing you do is you call them. When my wife passed away, I had a nurse in that house within 12 minutes. 12 minutes.
Yeah.
She's the one that's going to pass on this person is alive or has passed. So if I was a volunteer and I was there when that happened, that's not my call.
Yeah.
I am not involved with the patient, really. I'm the volunteer to help the family. So to answer your question, they want us to stay in touch with the family. If the family wants it. We're not here to push ourselves on anybody. Yeah. But if we can be a consoling person to somebody a month later and take them to lunch and talk about their past, it might be something that person needs. So you can call up and say, how you doing? They say, everything's fine, and thanks for your services. Well, you're being told there that, we don't have to see much more of you.
Yeah.
But there's others who might need that. So that's an open-end question. We're trained and taught to keep in touch with the family. Just don't say, all right, the person's going, I'm out the door, and who's the next guy for me? Yeah. That's not how it works. So as far as are we given to one person? We ask the person, what kind of a schedule do you have? When do you need us? Some people might say, I go to the grocery store every Wednesday. Can you be here every Wednesday? Well, the odds are someone like me who's free can be there every Wednesday.
Yes.
But if I'm not, if I'm bowling that day and I want to bowl before I go see the person, I might have one of their others come in. So the longer time that the patient or the caregiver gives the volunteer, he coordinates through the contact. He doesn't call me. Mm-hmm. Everything's through the coordinator. But once we have a relationship, then we sort of leave him out and we go with each other. But we always keep him. We do an exit paper. What did we observe? What did we do? This has to be turned into the people above us.
Does the family also do an evaluation of you? Well, not just you, but the team, I guess.
We had a survey from Holy Redeemer when my wife passed away. How did we do?
Yeah, I don't think we did.
We did.
But again, when you're in the experience, it's awfully hard to remember on reflection what it was like.
Yeah. But anyway, that's how I got into it. You know what I consider myself? I consider myself like I'm in the service. And now I'm going through boot camp. And one day, God forbid, you're going to see action, right?
Yeah. So
I was in the military. I never saw firing action, but I was trained to see fire. And I'm very confident right now that I'm trained to go in there, and I hope through my personality that I can bring relief to someone who's really not up to it. You and I have chatted about your own situation and my own situation, and we discussed each other like friends.
I'm still looking for purpose.
Well, there you go.
Because I, too, wonder, why am I still here?
Yeah.
I prayed that God would keep me here to take care of Marlene.
Yeah.
But now that responsibility is over, why am I still here?
Yeah.
No. So I'll find my purpose.
Well, maybe you'll get a postcard in the mail.
No, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do what you're preparing to do. I couldn't. You do have the personality. You have the resilience. We're
brought up in faith. Rich. We believe in an afterlife.
No, it's more than that.
The body goes, but the spirit continues.
It is your personality. I mean, you look on the happy side of everything. You've always been that way. When your business was in the tank, you were happy. I said, what's wrong with this guy?
He had a good way. Kept on a straight and narrow path. But I'm looking forward to the service.
Yeah.
And I pray that I be good at it. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The Holy Redeemer nuns have been around for 150 years taking care of the sick. Hospice came around in the 70s. When medical science finally said, you know what, we really can't cure everybody. Yeah. Some people are going to pass away. Yeah. And so what do you do with that person you know is going to pass away? And that's where hospice stepped into the picture. So I want to stress
Well, as you mentioned before, though, Redeemer main line, I think I looked it up one time. There are over 6,000 hospice providers in the country.
8,000.
8,000
in the country.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big
We're in a
business.
big country.
It's a big business.
It's a big country.
It's a big business.
Yeah.
It's a big business. And I'm sure the quality of care varies from one to another. If it's part of a health system, I would think, as yours was and mine was, I would think that there is more substance behind it than just a hospice provider.
Well, one thing we didn't touch on was hospice doesn't necessarily in the house. There is buildings out there that hospice people who are on their last stages of life.
We were fortunate, and I guess you were as well. I'm happy that Marlene had hospice at home and had the whole family.
So am I.
My daughters were staying with us, and they were with her 24/7.
Yeah.
Taking care of her.
Like you said, it's tough to see your bedroom turn into a hospital room.
Yeah.
You did it downstairs. We had it up in our bedroom.
Yeah.
But it was so peaceful with the flags flying outside and a nice summer day and the wind is open. And
Marlene loved cardinals, and so my kids put fake cardinals outside on a tree. Anyway, I wish you the best. I congratulate you and commend you for what you're doing. As I said, I couldn't do it. And thank you so much.
Let's hope that.
Good to see you. Yeah.
I'm half the guy you think I could be.
Until next time, this is Caregiver Assist. I'm Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.